Okay, so today we're jumping into something pretty provocative. It's a framework called the Crybaby Villainy Index. And trust me, it's a way of looking at conflict that's definitely going to get you thinking. So let's dive right in.
Wow. Okay, so the source material does not pull any punches, right? It sets this super confrontational tone right out of the gate. And this quote, this is really our starting point for digging into a very specific pattern of behavior. You know, that moment in a conflict where suddenly the roles of victim and villain just seem to get turned completely upside down.
And that leads us to the big question, really, the one this whole framework is trying to answer. The source basically argues that when an aggressor gets caught, something really predictable happens. It's almost like a performance, a theatrical pivot. So yeah, let's break that down.
All right, Section 1, the howling dog routine. This is all about when the villain wants to play the victim. And yeah, the source actually gives this whole thing a name, the howling dog routine. It's meant to describe that, well, that kind of bizarre situation we've all seen, right? Where the person who is clearly on the attack, the one causing all the problems, suddenly starts crying foul and claiming they're the one being attacked the very second a spotlight hits their actions.
So we get a more formal definition for this, what the source calls the howling dog routine v2.0. Think of it as an upgraded tactic. It's not just about, dodging the blame. It goes way further than that. This is about completely rewriting the narrative, flipping the script so the actual bad guy gets to play the hero, and the person who called them out is painted as the new villain.
Okay, next up, Crybaby Villainy Index defined. This is a framework for analyzing that role reversal. So to make all this analysis a bit more concrete, the source lays out what it calls the Crybaby Villainy Index. You can think of it like a toolkit, really, a way to spot and categorize this exact kind of role reversal while it's happening in real time.
And what's really interesting is how this whole index is built around these 4 key tags. First, you've got role inversion and weaponized victimhood. Those are the main tactics, the core of the strategy. Then there's pattern recognition audit, which is basically a fancy way of saying it's meant to track these behaviors when they happen again and again over time. And finally, its use case is an evidentiary companion. What does that mean? It means this whole framework is designed to be used alongside actual hard evidence. It's not just about feelings, it's about facts.
All right, Section 3, Anatomy of Role Reversal. Here's where we identify the key behaviors. Now, this is where the framework gets really granular. It breaks things down even further into super specific, observable actions, things you can actually see and point to, that are presented as symptoms of a bigger pattern, or as the source calls it, a syndrome.
Okay, so this table you're seeing, this is really the heart of the index. The source calls it Role Reversal Syndrome, or RRS for short. Let's just walk through these, because they're pretty specific. First up, RRS.1a, the perpetrators start claiming they're the ones being persecuted. Then you get RRS.1b, which is that classic, I'm hurt that you exposed my crimes line. Notice the hurt isn't about what they did, but about getting caught. Next is RRS.1c. Instead of being accountable, they try to guilt shame you. After a long battle, you might get that really weak, we didn't mean it like that non-apology. That's tagged as RRS.1d. And finally, RRS.1e, the whole game shifts to protecting the institution, not getting to the actual truth.
Moving on to Section 4, victimhood versus exoneration. And this is a really critical distinction. The entire framework kind of hinges on this one big idea. Just because you feel pain, that doesn't automatically make you the victim. The source argues there are 2 fundamentally different types of pain happening in these situations.
And wow, this quote just cuts right to the chase, doesn't it? You're not the victim because you feel pain, you're the villain because you caused it. I mean, that's about as direct as it gets. It's drawing this really sharp, uncompromising line. The pain of getting caught is simply not the same as the pain of being attacked. One person is feeling the consequences of what they did, while the other person felt the actions themselves.
This comparison here lays it all out perfectly. On one side, you have the hurt party. According to the source, this is the original target of the whole mess, the person who was silenced but who held on and now has the receipts. Then on the other side, you have the caught party. This is the one who started it all, who engineered the sabotage and manufactured the lies. And now they're just dealing with the fallout of being exposed. Okay, next section, the clown cloud alert. This is about when institutions become complicit. So now the framework kind of zooms out, right?
We're moving from looking at just individuals to looking at entire institutions. It introduces a concept for what happens when these big organizations just fail to do anything, and by doing nothing, they basically become complicit. They enable this whole role reversal show.
And the author uses this incredibly vivid metaphor for it, a fog of clownery. The idea here is that when an institution just lets this stuff happen, when they stop being able to tell the difference between the hurt party and the cop party, they lose all their credibility. Their moral compass just goes haywire. They stop being serious. And according to the source, they pretty much become a joke, lost in this fog where nobody knows what's real and what's not. And, well, the source uses some, let's say, uniquely colorful and derogatory terms for the people it claims are enabling this whole failure. But they're not just random insults, they're meant to be archetypes. You have the hackers with no skill. Those are the people who are just incompetent but help things along. You've got the hags with no grace, the bitter defenders of a broken system, and the pop boys with no purpose, kind of the empty suits, the figureheads. And the idea is that all these types together are what create and maintain this so-called clown cloud.
And this last quote is just the perfect punchline for the source's whole perspective. You want to be Lex Luthor so bad, but you're just the unnamed intern who spilled coffee on the schematics. It really captures this totally dismissive view. The argument is that these perpetrators have this grand delusion of being some kind of evil genius, when in the author's eyes, they're not even on the map. They're just clumsy and insignificant.
So what's the big takeaway here? At its core, the Crybaby Villainy Index is presented as a model, a tool. It's a system designed specifically to help identify and document that very precise moment when an aggressor gets caught and then immediately tries to flip the script and play the victim.
And all of this really leaves us with a pretty provocative question. One that this whole framework just forces you to think about. In any conflict, whether it's personal or out in the public sphere, when everyone involved is claiming they're in pain, how do you tell the difference? How do you separate the genuine pain of a victim from the painful regret of a perpetrator who just got caught? That's the challenge this index wants us to take on.